They don't want you focused. They want you distracted. That's the brutal, unvarnished truth no one dares to tell you. The modern world isn't built to foster your growth. It's a meticulously engineered cage designed to keep your mind perpetually occupied with the trivial. They crave your attention, funneling it onto vapid gossip, fleeting trends, the endless, meaningless arguments of digital echo chambers, and the soul-numbing scroll that steals your precious life one pixelated moment at a time. Why this relentless assault on your focus? Because a distracted man is weak. He is predictable. He follows, a sheep led to slaughter in the marketplace of ideas and aspirations. But a focused man, he transmutes into something far more dangerous, not because he is loud or aggressive, but because he becomes precise, intentional, and terrifyingly disciplined. And discipline, that unyielding fortress of will, sends shivers down the spine of those who seek to control. Niccolo Machiavelli, centuries ago, saw this insidious truth with a clarity that eclipses most men today. He didn't just understand it, he codified it into the very bedrock of power. He warned that real power doesn't emanate from gilded titles or an arsenal of weapons. It begins and ends within the mind. He who wishes to control others, Machiavelli wrote, must first control their thoughts. And in our digital age, control is no longer exerted through brute force. It is harvested, relentlessly, by capturing your attention. This is the big lie they feed you, that constant connectivity is strength, that boundless information is enlightenment. The terrifying reality is that it's an exploitation trap, a digital opium that sedates your ambition and blunts your edge. The man who cannot dictate his own focus will forever march to the drumbeat of another's agenda. This is the silent war raging every single day, not with armies clashing on battlefields, but with algorithms devouring your consciousness, not with physical chains, but with an endless stream of content meticulously crafted to enslave your mind. The more fractured your attention, the more pliable you become, the easier you are to sculpt into a form that serves their purpose, not your own. Every time you leap to react to someone's half-baked opinion, every time you plunge into an argument solely to prove your fragile worth, every time you slavishly chase another fleeting trend just to feel a phantom sense of relevance, you surrender a vital piece of your intrinsic power. One moment bleeds into the next, your energy seeping out like lifeblood from an unseen wound. Slowly, insidiously, you don't merely become fatigued, you become utterly lost. You cease to think for yourself. You dissolve into the deafening cacophony, a voiceless drone in a world where everyone screams but no one truly thinks. Machiavelli would brand this as the ultimate self-sabotage, a betrayal of your own sovereignty. For the man who cannot command his own mind is a man destined to be ruled, a perpetual serf in the attention economy. And here lies the profound misunderstanding, the fatal misinterpretation of self-focus. It is not isolation in the traditional sense. It's not about severing ties with the world or retreating into a monastic silence. It is, instead, the strategic art of protecting your inner sanctuary, your mental fortress. It's about the ruthless, calculated choice of what deserves your finite, precious energy and what, unequivocally, does not. You do not respond to every provocation because not every battle is worth the fight. Not every voice deserves an audience within your sacred space. You do not react to every casual insult because not every slight warrants the squandering of your emotional capital. True power, the kind that reshapes destinies, is profoundly quiet. Its strength is not measured by the decibel level of your pronouncements, but by the sheer volume of noise you can effortlessly rise above, an eagle soaring above the clamor of the flock. Self-focus is not selfishness. It is the ultimate act of self-preservation, a primal instinct for survival in a world designed to consume you. Today, the world doesn't just feed on your distraction, it ravenously devours your potential. Every app notification, Every screaming headline, every algorithmically curated feed is a digital harpoon designed to yank you away from the epicenter of your being, and with every successful tug, less of you remains. Machiavelli, with his cold, unblinking gaze, would have recognized this as the insidious blueprint for how rulers are forged, not by the overt imposition of obedience, but by the calculated cultivation of confusion. A confused man doesn't rebel. He scrolls, he sleeps, he forgets. And when he forgets who he is, when the clarity of his purpose is obscured by the digital fog, the world has already claimed its victory. This is precisely why your energy is sacred. Where your attention flows, your very life follows. You must guard your focus with the zealous ferocity of a king defending his fortress, not with quivering fear, but with an unyielding Machiavellian strategy. Let the masses fritter away their hours. Let them chase the fleeting mirage of approval. Let them drown in the ceaseless deluge of noise. You observe, you think, you plan, you move with an unwavering, surgical purpose. That is the true path to victory, not by being ubiquitously present, but by being precisely where you need to be, an invisible force operating beneath the surface. If you genuinely aspire to wield power in this fractured, frenetic world, then you must halt the mad dash after everything. Pick one direction, commit to one mission, excise, with brutal efficiency, every element that distracts you, and then, with an almost religious devotion, double down on what truly builds you, piece by strategic piece. The man who commits his entire being to a singular, unyielding purpose becomes unshakable, an immovable monument in a shifting landscape. Machiavelli knew this with an intuitive certainty. Greatness is not in the man who knows everything, he observed, but in the man who knows where he's going and refuses to be pulled away. So now look inward, ask yourself with unsparing honesty. Are you bleeding your vital energy into the grasping hands of fools, pouring your potential into the empty vessels of meaningless engagement? Or are you, with Machiavellian cunning, leveraging your silence to construct an empire of lasting significance? Because silence is not merely an absence of sound, it is an active, formidable form of control. It is the chilling capacity to remain imperturbably calm when all around you, others descend into a panic. It is the strategic choice to engage your intellect when the default mode for others is knee-jerk emotional reaction. It is the silent, purposeful movement of the chess master, while his opponents are still vociferously debating the previous move. Machiavelli would deem this supreme intelligence, to act not from the volatile crucible of emotion, but from the cold, calculating forge of wisdom. You have no need to broadcast your power. You have no obligation to prove a single thing to anyone. Your focus, honed to a razor's edge, will speak volumes. And when people can no longer decipher you, when you cease to react, to explain, to entertain their incessant nonsense, a deeper, more primal fear will begin to simmer within them regarding what you are quietly building. Let them fear, because you are not here to be understood. You are here to dominate your time, to protect your sacred energy, and to ascend, quietly, relentlessly, into your true strategic power. From this pivotal moment onward, you must guard your attention as if your very life hangs in the balance, for in this silent war, it absolutely does. Let the uninitiated lose themselves in the numbing din. Let them perpetually chase the hollow echoes of external approval. You, however, must build in silence. You must grow in the shadows, unseen, unheard, undistracted, and then, one day, they will hear the thunderous echo of everything you have meticulously created, and they will collectively wonder, with a sudden chilling dread, how they ever missed it. If you are truly done squandering your strength on the meaningless, then internalize this truth, write it in the very fabric of your being, and live by it. My silence builds empires. The world isn't merely after your attention. It is a predator, seeking to drain it, not in one dramatic, annihilating gulp, but bit by insidious bit, until there is nothing left of your essence, nothing left with which to build anything of lasting value. Your dreams, your unwavering focus, your boundless potential. These are the slow-eaten morsels, devoured by the endless, rapacious maw of distraction. This is the exploitation trap, meticulously designed to ensure your focus remains cheap, easily stolen, effortlessly broken. But if your ambition truly extends to building something powerful, something real, something that transcends the ephemeral, then your focus must become prohibitively expensive, utterly unreachable, vigilantly guarded, a fortress of the mind. This demands the ruthless excision of anything that drains you, even if it once provided fleeting amusement, even if it once offered a shallow sense of connection. For comfort and connection, in this strategic game, are not always benevolent forces. Sometimes they are the velvet chains that shackle you, preventing your vital evolution. And in a world hopelessly addicted to noise, where every thought must be shouted, true power does not need to roar. It simply needs to concentrate, to distill itself into an unbreakable force. A sharp, focused mind is infinitely more formidable than 1,000 loud, scattered ones. Machiavelli would concur with chilling certainty. He witnessed firsthand how rulers crumbled, not due to a lack of armies or wealth, but because their focus, their strategic clarity, had evaporated. Power, he knew, slips away like sand through the fingers of those who indiscriminately offer their energy to everyone and everything. So, if you are genuinely done trading your invaluable mind for the empty calories of distraction, if you are weary of being pulled in every conceivable direction except forward, then declare it, internally or externally. I guard my focus like a weapon, because you must. The man who fortifies his attention, above all else, protects his future. Now, grasp this profound truth. Isolation is not a weakness. It is a process of brutal refinement. People will inevitably remark, "You've changed." They will label you distant, cold, perhaps even arrogant. But that is not the truth they are speaking. What they truly mean is that you have ceased to be available to their chaos. You have become less accessible, less susceptible to distraction, less amenable to manipulation. And this shift, this sudden, unsettling transformation, terrifies them to their core, because the precise moment you withdraw from their collective noise, from their endless dramas and trivial pursuits, they lose their insidious control over you. Machiavelli, the master strategist, observed that a wise man must cultivate the art of being alone. Not because solitude is inherently easy, it often demands an agonizing confrontation with oneself, but because it is a boundless reservoir of power. Silence is not an empty void. It is pregnant with answers, pregnant with clarity. In the crucible of silence, your vision becomes crystalline, unclouded by the external. In the strategic isolation you forge, your mind sharpens itself to a terrifying edge. The modern world lionizes the man who is perpetually present, always posting, ceaselessly showing up in every digital arena. But the man who strategically disappears, who vanishes from the public eye to meticulously rebuild himself, that man returns tenfold stronger. And they, the distracted masses, possess no blueprint for handling such a transformed entity. You are not avoiding people, you are surgically excising noise, confusion, and emotional pollution from your sacred space. Every fleeting moment you spend in the Sisyphean task of explaining yourself to those who have no genuine desire to understand is a moment irrevocably lost, an asset bled from your strategic reserve. And a man utterly serious about his mission does not waste time explaining. He demonstrates. Your results, unassailable and undeniable, will speak with a far greater authority than your mere presence ever could. So, you isolate not to escape, but to regenerate, to refuel your strategic engine. You go silent, not to fade into oblivion, but to forge an unforgettable legacy. While they squander their lives broadcasting every mundane detail for fleeting likes and shallow comments, you go dark. You cease posting, you cease reacting. And while they chatter ceaselessly, you are calibrating, recalibrating, optimizing your inner machinery. While they chase the phantom of attention, you are steadily becoming the kind of force that commands it without ever having to chase. Machiavelli understood that the greatest leaders do not reveal their entire hand. They observe, they patiently wait, they meticulously plan in the profound depths of silence, and when they finally move, it is with the devastating impact of an unyielding purpose. Let others mock your silence. Let them erroneously believe you have fallen behind, because they will be the loudest, their voices echoing in a void, until the precise moment you return and, simply by your presence, silence the entire room, an undeniable force of nature. If you have ever felt that primal, irresistible pull to disappear, to vanish from the soul-crushing noise and re-emerge as something immeasurably greater, then trust that instinct. It is not a sign of weakness. It is the genesis of an unassailable strength. Go where no one, absolutely no one, can distract you. Build where no one can reach you. Refine your very being in a peace that transcends comprehension, and when you are finally ready to return, they will not even recognize the formidable entity you have become. So, if this is your current trajectory, stepping away from the noise, stepping into the purifying fire of self-mastery, then inscribe this promise into your soul: my silence is sacred, because when you return, it will not be with a torrent of empty words. It will be with irrefutable results, and those, in this strategic game, speak louder than anything else. Here is the first, coldest truth. The one who reacts first loses. In a world where every individual is screaming for attention, clamoring to be seen, genuine, unassailable power resides in silence. Not the silence of cowardice, not the passivity of the weak, but a calculated, strategic silence. The kind of stillness that unnerves every single person around you, that plants the seed of doubt and fear in their minds. Weak minds react instantly, impulsively. They flinch, they explain desperately, they defend preemptively. One raw, emotional outburst, and you are no longer the one pulling the strings of control. They are, because the chilling truth is, they do not provoke you out of genuine concern or even accidental misstep. They provoke to test the psychological strings within your mind, to ascertain if they still hold emotional ownership over you. And every time you snap, every time you argue, every time you over-explain yourself, you unequivocally confirm their dominance. You become predictable, and predictable men, in the Machiavellian game of power, are eminently controllable. Machiavelli understood this profound truth with chilling clarity. He once famously remarked, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. But today, intelligence is not measured solely by your court. It is measured by the unshakable calm you maintain when everything around you erupts in a conflagration of chaos. In the eye of the storm, your emotional discipline becomes your crown, your most formidable defense. When they cannot decipher you, they begin to fear you. When they cannot provoke you, they are stripped of all leverage, because silence, when wielded strategically, confuses. Stillness, when utterly profound, terrifies. You transform into the anomaly, the singular entity they cannot decode, the one who simply does not flinch. Your emotions must be trained with the precision and rigor of a Spartan soldier. No response is permitted unless it serves your overarching strategy. No outburst is tolerated unless it strengthens your long game. No explanation is offered unless it buys you a measurable increase in power. Everything else, you keep it locked away, sealed behind unreadable eyes. Let them guess. Let them panic in the disorienting shadows of your stillness. This is the treacherous realm where most people stumble and fall. They are addicts, enslaved to the rush of reaction, addicted to the false comfort of being understood. But you, the Machiavellian man, you do not crave fleeting validation. You crave absolute control. You do not aspire to be understood. You aspire to be unreadable. And if someone has ever, in their ignorance or malice, baited you into defending your peace, remember this indelible truth. You are not here to react. You are here to rule. The less they know about you, the more power you intrinsically hold, and the deeper their fear will run. The second, equally chilling truth: self-focus builds leverage. Power, in its purest, most potent form, does not require applause. It has no need to explain its very existence. It simply is, a silent and undeniable force. In every room, in every interaction, two distinct archetypes of men exist. The one who speaks incessantly, driven by an almost pathological need to prove himself, to announce his presence, to earn validation. And then there is the other, the one who listens with an almost predatory focus, assessing vulnerabilities, collecting vital intelligence, mapping emotional triggers, discerning patterns, and who, inevitably, walks away with the decisive advantage. It is always the quiet one, the man who feels no compulsion to dominate the room with his voice, because he has already thoroughly dominated the battlefield within his own mind. This is precisely where Machiavelli's doctrine strikes with its most profound impact. He never romanticized fairness, an illusion for the weak. He romanticized, rather, absolute, unyielding control. He grasped, with an intellectual ruthlessness, that people only truly respect what they genuinely fear losing. Not fleeting charm, not performative kindness, but leverage. And leverage, that ultimate strategic asset, is born from obsession, an obsession with self-focus, with the relentless, unyielding refinement of your mind when no one is watching, with the silent, strategic elevation of your inherent value. Every single hour meticulously spent sharpening your intellect, every focused moment dedicated to honing your craft, every solitary minute invested in mastering your inner world. These hours do not merely make you incrementally better, they render you, over time, truly irreplaceable. Consider the man who strategically disappears for a year to meticulously construct his empire. He is not running away from responsibility or engagement. He is recalibrating, meticulously storing up an immeasurable reservoir of leverage, and when he eventually returns, 10 steps ahead of everyone else, calm, composed, profoundly silent, they will not just notice, they will feel it. They will speak less, listen more, not because he vociferously demanded their respect, but because he has transmuted into the kind of man they simply cannot afford to lose. This is not power derived from superficial noise. This is power forged in the crucible of cold self-discipline and an unshakable inner architecture. And here, Machiavelli would whisper the cruelest truth directly into your ear today. Let them chase the fleeting applause of the crowd. You, with strategic purpose, chase relentless refinement. Let them argue endlessly for ephemeral relevance. You, in stark contrast, build unassailable results. The precise moment you cease to expend energy trying to prove your worth is the moment your worth, paradoxically, multiplies. Because when you construct yourself in the hallowed depths of silence, the world, in its awe and recognition, has no choice but to acknowledge you, not through tiresome arguments, not through pathetic defenses, but through sheer, unyielding presence. This, my friends, is psychological warfare. This is Machiavellian mastery in its purest form. So, internalize this. Real influence does not shout. It does not beg for validation. It does not seek permission to exist. It simply walks into a room, a silent, undeniable force, and fundamentally alters the very atmosphere, bending it to its will. And if they dare to compete, if they challenge your quiet authority, you do not react, You do not defend. You simply exist, unapologetically, above their futile attempts. You render your absence expensive, a strategic move not designed to impress, but to fiercely protect what is sacred within you. Because once a man redirects his focus inward, a profound shift occurs. He ceases to negotiate his worth outward. The hollow applause fades, the distracting noise dims, and what remains is an almost terrifying clarity. A sharp, dangerous clarity that the world, in its chaotic impulsiveness, inherently fears. This is the precise moment you stop broadcasting your every move and begin building, quietly, unapologetically, your true empire. While others flaunt every minor accomplishment for digital validation, you become the ghost in the room, unseen, unheard, and therefore utterly unshaken. If you are constructing your empire where no one else is watching, declare it now with a chilling resolve. My focus is my throne, because in a world hopelessly addicted to noise, silence is the ultimate power play. The world does not genuflect to the loudest voice. It bows, rather, to the calmest, most strategically detached mind with the deepest, most unassailable leverage. And here lies the brutal, often ignored truth. Most people do not genuinely pursue real power. They chase instead the intoxicating illusion of attention, mistakenly conflating it with true power. They yearn to be noticed, to be applauded, to be universally praised. They crave the ephemeral glow of being admired, but without the gritty, terrifying, and often lonely process of being feared. But Machiavelli, with a withering scoff, would dismiss this as the most pathetic form of weakness. He who seeks the approval of the crowd, he wrote, will be governed by it. The more profoundly you need to be seen, the more vulnerable you become, the easier you are to manipulate, a puppet on invisible strings. Because when your very self-worth is inextricably tied to external noise, you are no longer sovereign. You are predictable. And a predictable man, in the game of power, is never truly powerful. He is merely an actor, dressed in the trappings of status, perpetually waiting for the next round of applause, utterly dependent on it. Validation, in its insidious modern form, is nothing short of a leash. Not a visible, physical tether, but a psychological chain, cunningly disguised in likes, in hearts, in emojis, in the bland veneer of polite praise. It does not tighten suddenly, with a shocking jolt. It seduces slowly, insidiously. You begin to crave it, then to depend on it, until it dictates the very rhythm of your emotional landscape. The moment someone, anyone, expresses disapproval, your carefully constructed mental peace shatters. A single negative comment ruins your entire day. One ignored message kills your drive, your ambition. That is not confidence. That is a program, an external code controlling your internal state. And if you can be programmed, you can, inevitably, be broken. The algorithm, that unseen sovereign of our digital age, does not reward authenticity. It rewards obedience, conformity, predictability. When you are tame, when you play by its rules, it rewards you with intoxicating bursts of dopamine. When you dare to be authentically real, authentically dangerous, it starves you, isolates you. That is not affirmation. That is profound manipulation, meticulously coded and polished to resemble freedom. Machiavelli, the ruthless pragmatist, never engaged in such a self-defeating game. He never begged the crowd to clap. He was profoundly uninterested in being adored, in being liked. He was obsessed, rather, with leverage, with control, with undeniable outcomes. He understood what most still stubbornly refuse to accept. The more you outsource your sense of self to the fickle opinions of others, the less of that self you truly own. So let this be the stark, irrevocable turning point. If you still require external eyes upon you to feel a sense of self-worth, if you still crave the reflected glory of others' attention to feel important, you have already, fundamentally, surrendered your mind. Most people wander through their lives starving for approval, and they do not even possess the self-awareness to recognize it. They scroll, they post, they wait with bated breath, their entire emotional state swinging wildly based on the ephemeral opinion of a stranger. That is not individuality. That is submission in disguise. That is emotional slavery, and it wears a deceptive smile. But there is another path, a colder one, a lonelier one, certainly. Yet it is also the only path that leads to unshakable, impregnable self-possession. You must, with a surgical precision, utterly kill the desperate need to be seen. You must cultivate the formidable capacity to validate yourself, not through performative expression, but through relentless execution, not through the empty echoes of praise, but through undeniable, measurable progress, not through the fleeting spotlight of attention, but through the profound depths of silence. Let your unyielding discipline be your only applause. Let your irrefutable results be your biography, etched in the annals of reality. Let your strategic absence say more, communicate more power than your most vibrant presence ever could. This is the Machiavellian mindset. The less they know, the more they fear. Real power does not announce itself with fanfare. It builds, it sharpens, it calculates in the impenetrable silence, and then, only then, does it strike, without warning, with devastating precision. So if you have ever felt that undeniable, primal pull to vanish, to go utterly dark, to ascend quietly in the shadows, then listen to that instinct. It is not fear. It is your future, your sovereign self, calling to you. And when you eventually return, you will not merely be recognized. You will be remembered, an indelible force. The world swiftly forgets those who speak too often, those who flood the airwaves with their incessant noise. But it never ever forgets the man who arrives with an almost terrifying precision, with scars hidden beneath the cloak of silence, and with a presence so undeniably heavy, so profoundly impactful, that it becomes impossible to ignore. This is not about the vanity of ego. This is about the strategic elevation of your being. It is about the ruthless process of learning how to become truly untouchable, not by shouting louder than anyone else, but by mastering yourself so profoundly, so completely, that no external force, no criticism, no praise can ever shake your unyielding center. And when you return from this strategic silence, expect one thing above all: they will test you, not with overt declarations of war, but with subtle slights, with backhanded comments, cloaked in feigned concern, with condescending tones designed to diminish your stature, with subtle, almost imperceptible dismissals meticulously crafted to trigger your pride, to bait you back into their game of reaction. This is not random. It is a calculated tactic, an instinctive probing. The world, in its insecurity, always attempts to belittle what it cannot fully understand, what it cannot control. That is precisely why your next step, your response, is utterly crucial. Never, under any circumstances, tolerate disrespect. Not once, not ever. Because if they disrespect you once, if you allow that transgression to slide, they will perceive it as an implicit permission slip. And what is permitted, in the brutal calculus of power, quickly becomes the new, diminished standard for your treatment. Machiavelli understood this fundamental law of power with a chilling clarity. He taught, men should either be treated generously or destroyed, because they take revenge for slight injuries. For heavy ones, they cannot. This means that if you allow minor disrespect, if you tolerate trivial slights, you are not merely being kind or forgiving. You are, in fact, creating enemies who now perceive you as weak, as exploitable, and weak men, in the unforgiving arena of power, inevitably invite greater, more devastating attacks. You must correct disrespect immediately, not emotionally, not violently, certainly not defensively, but surgically, with a calm, deliberate, and utterly unwavering resolve. If someone dares to mock you in front of others, correct them in front of others. not to humiliate them, but to etch the boundary line with such crystal clarity that no one, absolutely no one, ever contemplates crossing it again. Respect is not politely requested. It is ruthlessly enforced through the power of your presence, the unwavering strength of your boundaries, and the swift, undeniable implementation of consequence. And here lies the most pervasive trap, the one into which most people blindly fall. They confuse kindness with an unwarranted tolerance. But Machiavelli, with his cold, calculating wisdom, would issue a dire warning. If your mercy is mistaken for weakness, you have failed in leadership. A truly strong man can, indeed, be kind. But the precise moment someone misinterprets or attempts to exploit that kindness as weakness, that strong man must, instantly, transmute into something cold, utterly composed, and exacting in his response. Because every single act of tolerated disrespect, every slight that you allow to pass unchallenged, chips away at your hard-won authority, erodes your influence, and slowly, insidiously, diminishes your very identity. So, guard your name, guard your silence, guard your sacred space with the ferocity of a king defending his most precious territories. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be respected, and respect is not built by pathetically explaining yourself to fools. It is forged, instead, by demonstrating, through quiet strength, through ruthless adherence to your standards, and through unapologetic self-respect, that some boundaries are simply not negotiable, not today, not ever. That, ultimately, is what the world fears above all else. Not the man who shouts for attention, desperately vying for the spotlight, but the man who strategically vanishes into the profound depths of silence, only to emerge, having meticulously built something so formidable, so undeniable, that no amount of applause, no amount of external validation, could ever possibly match its intrinsic worth. The man who returns without asking for permission, without seeking a single crumb of validation, because what he has forged in the shadows speaks with an authority that transcends language. He does not beg for praise. He commands, with his very presence, an unyielding respect. This man, the Machiavellian sovereign, kills the modern impulse. The desperate need to post the plan before it's even fully formed, to display his work before it's truly complete, to celebrate prematurely, long before the battle is decisively won. That impulse, that pervasive need for instant gratification and external affirmation, is the insidious disease of our time, tragically mistaking fleeting attention for genuine achievement. But the Machiavellian man, he is immune to that virus. He has no desperate need to be seen. He needs, above all else, to be sovereign, and that, unequivocally, is why he wins. Not through the empty clamor of noise, but through crystalline clarity, through irrefutable results, through a laser-like focus that simply does not flinch under pressure. While others are perpetually busy performing for an unseen audience, he is ruthlessly performing in silence, under immense pressure, in profound discomfort, in absolute solitude. And when he eventually returns, when he emerges from the shadows, fully formed, calm, and utterly unshaken, they will, inevitably, ask how. How did he rise with such power while they were frantically explaining themselves? How did he evolve into this formidable entity while they were still chasing the hollow echoes of applause? How did he become so utterly untouchable without ever needing to raise his voice? And his answer, if he deigns to give one, will be silence, because real growth, true transformation, does not explain itself. It simply transforms. It does not tentatively knock. It enters with undeniable force. It does not beg. It reigns supreme. So if you have begun to strategically detach from the incessant performance, understand this. This is not a withdrawal. This is, in fact, an ascension. It is the very first, potent sign of your nascent sovereignty. The man who no longer seeks their eyes, their approval, becomes the shadow that subtly, powerfully, controls their world. The man who no longer requires external approval becomes the undeniable force who sets the standards for all others to follow. And that, precisely, is where discipline truly enters the arena, not as a transient burst of motivation, but as the impenetrable fortress that fiercely guards your hard-won power. Discipline is the only true, unbreachable fortress. Machiavelli did not preach charming morning routines or feel-good habits. He preached, rather, absolute, unyielding control. And before you can ever hope to control empires, to influence men, or to shape outcomes on a grand scale, you must first and foremost master the relentless war within your own hours, your own mind. The untouchable man does not idly rely on the fickle whims of inspiration. He does not patiently wait to feel ready to act. He makes a cold, calculated decision to be ready, daily, without emotion, without excuse. While others languish, waiting for the elusive mood to strike, he strikes regardless of mood. Because in the unforgiving game of power, time is your most precious currency, and a rigorous, unyielding structure is the only way you can truly invest it, making every second count. Look around you. Most people are perpetually exhausted, not from genuinely working hard, but from working blindly, aimlessly. They chase ephemeral goals with no discernible foundation. They burn their precious energy with no coherent routine, no strategic system. They move, but they build nothing of lasting value. They are loud, but utterly ineffective. They tragically mistake frantic activity for actual progress. But not you. Not if you have come this far. If you have absorbed these brutal truths. You do not chase chaos. You command clarity. And clarity, true, strategic clarity, begins with systems that simply do not waver, that operate with the precision of a master clock. Every controlled hour is a weapon, honed to a deadly edge. Every repeated habit is armor, impenetrable and unyielding. Every disciplined decision is a surgical strike against the encroaching mediocrity that seeks to consume all. The world does not see the man who wakes at 5 a.m. with no audience, no applause, the man who trains his body in silence, who reads dense texts in the pre-dawn darkness, who executes his mission without needing a single spectator. But they feel him. His results, undeniable and profound, echo louder than their endless distractions. That is the power Machiavelli understood. Invisible, relentless preparation creates an undeniable, almost gravitational presence. This isn't about the mirage of perfection. It's about the unyielding force of predictability. Predictability not to others, but to yourself. An internal compass that never deviates. When your body acts before your wavering mind can conjure an excuse, you have won a profound victory. That is true freedom. Real freedom is not the absence of structure. It is the absolute, unyielding ownership over it. The freest man is the one who has mastered limitation, who moves not because he is pushed by external forces or internal whims, but because he is programmed, by his own sovereign design, to move. Motivation is for amateurs, for the uninitiated. Systems are for rulers, for the architects of empires. The man of unbreakable structure does not ask himself, "Do I feel like it?" He declares, with an unshakable resolve. It gets done, no matter what. While others burn out, chasing the fleeting highs of dopamine, he meticulously builds discipline into the very core of his being, into his bones. He does not rely on transient feelings. He relies on code, on an internal operating system that never fails. That is not glamorous. It is elite. That is not viral. It is vital. And here's the most profound truth. When people realize, with a sudden, chilling clarity, that you do not waste a single second of your precious time, they will instinctively know you will not waste your formidable power. They will begin to fear, not your raw energy, but your unyielding order, not your volume, but your chilling consistency. You don't merely own time, you weaponize it turning it into your most potent asset. Then comes the sharpest, most devastating edge in your strategic arsenal: emotional detachment. The weapon no one sees coming, the one that blindsides all opponents, because when the world around you descends into a cacophony of chaos, when others lose all semblance of control, the man who remains utterly calm, profoundly collected, becomes the single most dangerous entity in the room. The man who observes every detail without reacting, who sees everything but reveals absolutely nothing, cannot be predicted, and therefore cannot be controlled. Machiavelli, with his characteristic pragmatism, would remind you that men are driven by two primary forces: love and fear. But fear, he argued, is far more reliable, far more enduring, far more potent. Love expects softness, a reciprocal vulnerability. Fear, however, respects silence, the unreadable, the unknown, and silence, when wielded with strategic clarity, is an exponentially more powerful force than any emotional response, any outburst, any desperate explanation. You do not owe them a single explanation. You owe yourself absolute command over your inner and outer world. The second they discern what upsets you, what triggers your emotional response, they gain ownership over you. The second they provoke a reaction, you surrender invaluable leverage. You are not here to be triggered, to be manipulated. You are here to track, to study, to analyze their moves. You are here to respond, not with the noise of emotion, but with the surgical precision of movement, to act not with feeling, but with cold, calculated accuracy. The Machiavellian man does not shout. He does not beg for understanding. He doesn't even bother to defend his actions. He simply, profoundly, ceases to play their game. While others exhaust themselves fighting to be heard, he, with an almost terrifying stillness, controls the ultimate outcome, silently, invisibly. You do not require closure. You require crystal clarity. You do not need revenge. You need an unassailable elevation. When they finally perceive that they no longer affect you, not your mood, not your mission, not your unyielding focus, they will realize, with a sudden chilling dread, that they have already irrevocably lost. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be untouchable. So let them talk, let them judge, let them misunderstand to their heart's content. The more they speculate, the more precious energy they futilely burn, while you meticulously conserve yours for devastating, undeniable results. That is strategy, that is power, and that is the Machiavellian edge: mastering your time, mastering your very self, mastering the profound art of silence. Because in the end, the man who needs absolutely nothing from the world becomes the one the world, ultimately, can no longer ignore. This kind of power does not erupt in a sudden, violent explosion. It evolves quietly, relentlessly, with the patience of geological time. It builds itself in the background, unnoticed, unrecognized by those too distracted, too consumed by their own noise, to even perceive its formidable genesis. And this, my friend, is where you now reside. Beyond their noise, beyond their shallow reach, you study while they sleep. You plan with meticulous detail while they gossip. You train your mind and body relentlessly while they doubt you, while they mock your absence. Because every quiet hour you strategically invest, every unseen sacrifice you make, it compounds, it amplifies its effect exponentially, and soon you are not merely progressing. You are separating yourself, creating an unbridgeable distance not just from others, but from the weaker, more malleable version of yourself that once craved comfort, that once sought external validation. While they scramble for fleeting attention, you are sharpening your edge to a terrifying keenness. While they beg for validation, you are silently building unassailable leverage. You are no longer trying to be seen. You are becoming, through your sheer presence and undeniable results, utterly impossible to ignore. And the truth, the profound truth, is this: You do not return to who you once were. That man is a memory now, a relic of a past self. He did what he had to do. He bore the excruciating weight of old weaknesses. He learned the hard, brutal lessons. But now, he is irrevocably gone, replaced by someone who does not flinch under immense pressure, who does not fold under even the most scathing criticism, and who, crucially, never again fails himself, never again betrays his own sovereignty. You have become the very thing they feared you would become, someone completely, utterly, terrifyingly in control. This is the Machiavellian truth. Power never begs. It never announces itself with a cacophony of noise. Real power moves in the profound depths of silence. It calculates, it controls, and above all, it masters itself, utterly and completely, before it ever contemplates mastering others. You have walked the arduous path from chaos to crystalline clarity, from debilitating distraction to unyielding discipline, from crippling insecurity to impregnable internal sovereignty. That path, forged in solitude, does not require a spotlight. It demands profound, unyielding silence. So let them talk, let them wonder, let them speculate endlessly. Let them underestimate you, their judgments clouded by their own noise. Because while they are frantically busy trying to decode your silence, you are already 10 strategic moves ahead, reshaping the very board they play on. If you have made it this far, if you have walked this entire, transformative journey with me, then declare it to yourself, deeply and definitively. They can't reach me anymore. I've become the silence they can't decode. And never, ever forget, true power is never loud. It does not seek applause. It does not chase empty closure. It simply moves, sharp and deliberate, an unstoppable force. That is the Machiavellian way. And now it is yours.